Some weeks ago, we had Crystal and Sagar on the Hills Rising. That's the show on the Hill Rising. I will be doing a few episodes on this, and then each I will include the link of his interview. But here's a clip that where he was talking about a month or two ago. Yeah, it was a month ago, and he was talking about just the inevitable, horrifying situation where, I mean, this is Great Depression level territory. And he said something so terrifying to me. I mean, he said so much, but this is the first clip I want to share with you. And I think this is, it's just something that we need to look at. Here we go.
The Federal Reserve has now made a decision about a week ago to start buying corporate bonds in the secondary market. What that effectively means is that the government is backstopping the entire credit apparatus of the United States. It already stands behind most homes through the mortgage systems that we've developed since the 30s, and now it is standing behind all the corporate loans because, in effect, it becomes the banker of last resort. Any idea that the economy is now, quote unquote, a free private enterprise economy is downright silly, as well as ideologically backward. We now have an economic system utterly dependent on the creation of money by our central bank. I could go on, but these are signs of disintegration of one kind of economic system and the transition towards another one. It's not clear exactly where this will end. But as I said to you, this is a level of breakdown that is really impossible for me to find in the prior history of our capitalism, at least since the Civil War.
That is borderline terrifying. Now, if you remember the history of the Great Depression, they calculated it. I don't know really how they calculated it back then. I mean, in the 1930s, they said that it was about a 23 to 24% unemployment rate. We are now at probably at around a 19 to 20%, possibly, unemployment rate right now. We are in Great Depression territory, okay? And effectively, we've had a terrible response by the Trump administration, by the corporate Democrats, by progressives. Every single politician you have in Congress right now let you down. Every single one. And essentially, here's what he's going on. So what he's saying is, our country's got a central bank. It's called the Federal Reserve. It's usually like kind of independent of most of the country, but the president still gets to have a chairman. Government still has things to do with it. Now, the libertarian point of view is saying, hey, we don't want a central bank. Why are we going to have a central bank? What it's also saying is, let's just let, the real free market capitalist market is, okay, fine. Let's just let everything go berserk. Let it all blow up, and let's not do anything about it. So now, okay, you can say that, but the Federal Reserve is here to backstop, as Richard Wolff said, it's here to backstop the corporate debt and the entire credit apparatus of our country. What that means is, any debt that the bank is in, any money they are owed, the Federal Reserve will essentially backstop. They will pay the banks whatever they need in bailouts, and then they will just take over and finish paying off the debt of everybody, in terms of the big corporations. That's why it's called corporate debt. Think of it as, let's say you're a college student, or someone co-signs a credit card on a credit card, or a loan, or a car, or a house, or something, and you can't pay it off. Well, then it becomes their responsibility. Now, the problem is that right now we are bailing out the banks. I was about to say we're bailing out the people. Can you imagine? We're bailing out the banks. We're bailing out the corporations, right? And so now that their corporate debt's being paid, you have a huge problem when it comes to renters. Renters like me and my family in the apartment, the condo we're in housing and all of that. They all have landlords. Well, if you don't have the money to pay your landlord, then the landlord can't pay the money to the banks. Now, the banks are okay. They're not going to suffer. They're actually getting money from the Federal Reserve and from Congress. They're actually paying out, what, $1 trillion a day? $1 trillion. You know, not 1,000, not 100,000, not 1,000,000. Not, $1 billion. No. $1 trillion freaking dollars a day to the banks and saying, here. Well, the banks are effectively paying that off because they're like, well, we have money. We're not out of money. So the banks have the money. Landlords don't have the money to pay the banks, but the banks are still demanding the money, but the people don't have the money to give to the banks or to the landlords, and now the landlords can't give it to the banks, of course. And what's going to happen to the system? Boom. Bang. It's going to go down. It's going to blow up. It's just going to crash, right? Nobody has any money to supply the system anymore. Now, you can say, oh, well, they just print the money out of thin air anyway, which is essentially what happens. Yes, that is the case. But this is some serious crap. Now, the biggest problem that we're facing is, why are we bailing out the big corporate banks and the corporations of this country? It makes no sense. We need to be bailing out the people. Now, if you look at the sheer response of the Great Depression, right, you had such a huge problem that in the Democratic and Republican primaries, the Republican primaries, they basically picked Herbert Hoover. He was the Republican president, the big man himself, the good guy, they're like, okay, let's go with him. Democrats, though, needed a change. And the delegates nominated someone, after the primaries and all that, who was a social democrat. That was my voiceover. Essentially, he was a social democrat. And what that means is he was all about bailing out the people. He wasn't about bailing out the corporations. In his mind, it was, let me bail out the people, and then the people will bail out the corporations, right? It took him to redistribute the wealth by creating a social safety net. He created the reservation thing where, you had the government paying people to then go and build trees and forests and parks and everything you see in the country today. A lot of them, or the conservation project. I'm sorry, not the reservation, the conservation project. They did all of that. He also created the FDIC, which now insures your money. Anytime you get a bank, anytime there's fraudulent account on your bank account or your card, the FDIC insures it, gives you a new card. Not a bad thing. Good, we're good. Essentially, not only did that help, but you also had World War II, where not only did Roosevelt give us, the Social Security Administration and the Social Security Act, what that basically did was it redistributed the wealth to the people, and they were able to spend in the market. They were able to stimulate the economy, and that helped us get on track. Now you had World War II. Japan attacked us in Pearl Harbor and on September 7, 1941, which will live in infamy. Thank you, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And that stimulated the economy like quick as hell, because that gave us a freaking shitload of jobs, and it just, women got jobs, which gave them a taste of the workforce. Kids started working as well. Men were sent off to the war. Obviously, that gave more people jobs, right? And it also created the golden age in our economy. He created a corporate tax rate that, corporations actually had to pay, lower the taxes on the people. And then the 50s and the 60s saw a great golden age in American economics, and we had the best economy in the world, and now it's China. That's essentially what happened. What you also had was unions, and a bunch of labor unions, which I will get to in the next video about Richard Wolff, where he's saying you had a bunch of people who were fighting on behalf of people causes and workers' causes, which then allowed for proper policies to be made and developed that benefited us, like the AAA, the FDIC, all kinds of good things that Roosevelt did in order to create jobs, in order to protect the money of the country, and in order to get the economy back to health. Well, now what we have is a destruction of the unions, a destruction of labor unions and all of that. So this is essentially bailing out the people of the corporations. Yeah, if you're a corporation, we'll bail you out. So it's pretty much the same size response as the Great Depression. The Great Depression saw the bailout of the people. But then we also have this bailout, but that goes to the rich. Now, they did this back in 2008 and 2009 as well, where the central bank decided to backstop all the country's corporations' debt. It bought all that corporate debt, but then the people again didn't have money, and which is why we got the subprime mortgage crisis. And then you had the Great Recession, and you had over 670,000 jobs lost, thanks Bush and the Democrats. And so that's essentially what happened, right? The system crashed. Well, two instances here. We're bailing out the corporations. 2008, we bailed out the corporations. Both times the market crashed. Both times the economy was in tatters. It shattered. People were out of work. People lost their health care. They didn't have money to pay the bills. They were homeless. They were evicted. They died, right? In the 30s, you had essentially people being bailed out, and then corporations ended up making more money because the people were bailed out. They were able to stimulate the economy, purchase more in terms of market goods, and that's how the country got back to better standing and was able to compete on the world stage and help with the Marshall Plan and all of that. If you don't know what the Marshall Plan is, it was helping Europe rebuild, and we also did that because we feared communism, and that basically made us some more allies. Now, the fact that Richard Wolff says, I have not seen this, there's nothing analogous to this, not even the Great Depression in modern history since probably the Civil War, that is time to panic. This is time to panic. We are in a devastating situation. We're not going to survive it, possibly. It is really bad. Now we're seeing a huge wave of evictions because, again, nobody has money to pay the bills. Oh my God. Guys, this is time to panic. Call your representatives. Ask for UBI. Ask for Medicare for all. Ask for housing for all. Ask for jobs for all. Ask for wages to be nationalized. Whatever we can do. Cancel all student debt. Cancel all medical debt. Make college free so then we can turn around and give all that money back to the people and then just stimulate the economy that way. Whatever we can do, you need to call your representatives and get that done because, guys, this is time to panic. This is terrifying.